All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Jets Flight Path. And lo and behold, the New York Jets have a new head coach, and his name is Marvin Lewis.
I don't
No,
think that's the
that,
name of the head coach, Brian.
you know what? I think you're right. I misspoke. It's Robert Saleh. The candidate who most people, who is number one on your list, number two on mine, the 49ers former defensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the New York Jets, signing a 5-year deal. I think it's a great hire. I mean, he he is the perfect fit going from low energy bowls and dour sourpuss Gase to going to a guy who brings the energy like a Rex Ryan, but is a lot more professional. Hopefully, no foot fetish off the field videos or a bunch of stuff like that. And Robert Sala, like I can't seem to recall. Maybe you can, like from another hire of just any team of a new head coach over the past few years, where you have this outpour of support from players, league execs, like all around coaches and everything. Like this is a great hire for the Jets. I can't really recall.
I would say maybe Rex Ryan, but I mean Rex Ryan he was really only a coach for Baltimore, and the players in Baltimore loved him, and that's when you saw Bart Scott come over and you saw this
Hmm.
one come over.
Jim Leonard,
But
yeah.
no, I completely agree. Robert Saleh is the guy that the Jets had on their board. He is the guy that most teams wanted. You look at Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia made a late run push for him, but
Yes.
Joe Douglas hunkered down and he got the deal done. And I, as a Jet fan, can say for the first time in about 18 months, am excited to see what the Jets are going to be doing because it was so predictable for so long with, oh, okay, they brought in Gase, and oh, okay, he's bringing over his guy from Miami, and he's doing that. Like, it was so predictable.
You knew
But
the end
this,
of the road with that
right,
once they made that hiring.
right. And with Robert Saleh, this hire says, okay, the Jets have a new front office. The Jets are done playing games and expect big things out of the Jets. Now, is it going to be an immediate impact? I think it can be. It all depends on what he thinks of the player personnel now. It throws a wrench into the Sam Darnold debate because, from what we understand, he is bringing over passing game 49 passing game coordinator and making him his offensive coordinator in Mike LaFleur. And he's bringing over that West Coast offense. And if you look back in the media, the 49ers absolutely loved Sam Darnold. So you would think with this hire and and Salah bringing over Lafleur, I don't know. I think they might be hanging on to Darnold. I mean we can definitely discuss that as we get on to later in the show. But
Yeah,
a lot of things are happening with this hire. But I mean most importantly, the Jets got their guy, and they didn't they didn't let him. They didn't beat themselves. They didn't let him get away from him. They did what they had to do, and
right.
now
They
it's up to
when they
both of them.
decided, they apparently for the first time ever speaking with Sal last, I believe Friday, or it was before we recorded when they already conducted the first interview with Salah, and over the weekend they then the Jets conducted interviews with Arthur Smith, who was now just hired earlier today by the Atlanta Falcons to be their head coach. They interviewed Brian Dabble after the Bills game, Brendan Staley, the Rams DC, Matt Eberflus. They interviewed Joe Brady, and they even interviewed former Jet great Aaron Glenn, the current Saints DB coach, who, I mean, it depends. Salah's going to assemble his own staff, but I wouldn't mind seeing Aaron Glenn return as defensive coordinator. But yeah, you mentioned the big key thing, which a lot of people, reading on Twitter like clowning. It's like, well, yeah, the Jets bring in Mike LaFleur from San Fran, but what happens in a year or two when he leaves to become a head coach? Well, if that's the case, then that means he did a good enough job as the Jets OC in making their offense, bringing them in the 21st century. So I would not mind that at all. Like I think, but Salah's presence, just you see the way he speaks in any type of press conference or interview. He's very professional. He's very, well spoken and knowledgeable about what it takes to assemble a staff. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to be a D coordinator or everything. Like he realizes, like the one clip I saw of him speaking was saying that we all have weaknesses and everything, but that's why we come together. Every guy, you want to have that diversity of different like thought process, different backgrounds to come together to make a good staff, and then that trickles down from there. Like I mentioned before, players love them like around the league, and already current outpour from Jets players. Quentin Williams was very happy with the announcement of Saleh as new head coach, which I think it would. I think I could see double-digit sacks for Williams this year. I've personally been critical of him just simply because of another Jets defensive lineman that they took in the first round, but I think Saleh could bring out the best in him, and they're definitely going to add to the defense, and we'll get to it in a bit. But I think possibly Richard Sherman may be a New York Jet, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But with Mike LaFleur, especially you mentioned with Darnold, I think it could fit very well Zach Wilson. It depends on really what they want to do. Apparently, that is the direction that Saleh wants to go in, and kind of mimicking Kyle Shanahan's offense and bringing LaFleur over, who was, as you mentioned, Paul, his assistant, was the passing game coordinator. So we'll see. But, finally, the Jets got it right. They didn't let the coach that they like slip through their fingers because of ownership wanting some different thing or just like a miscommunication or something, as they did with Cliff Kingsbury and Matt Rule. But this is what happens when there's finally competency, where the owner lets the GM he hires do his job and says, "Yeah, I interviewed this guy, this guy, this guy. I like this guy. We're signing him." Okay, that's all you have to do as the owner. Just go ahead with your GM. And the Douglas Saleh combination, that's really promising for the first time in a long time at Florham Park.
And the nice thing about that is, I was listening to Rich Eisen, which I absolutely love his show because he's a fellow Jet fan, but he speaks for basically all Jet fans. What we've been feeling over the past, for us it's 20 years, but he goes back, even further than that, and to see him just talk about what a great hire this is, and have optimism. Again, he speaks for all Jet fans, and I really haven't noticed any fans on Twitter or Reddit or even Facebook that have condemned this hire. Like you said, players around the league love him. If you go through some of our own players' Twitter accounts, they love the hire. And like you said with that video, I was going to bring that up, but you went ahead and did it. He seems like he's self-aware to the point where he's
Yeah,
like, you know what? I don't have all the answers, but that's why I'm going to bring in some guy who can, take care of the defensive line, or, he's the best at, running the offensive line. And so I really like this hire. It's going to be a culture changer in New York. It already has been to an extent with Joe Douglas and his drafting last year. You're going to see he's going to be bringing in a lot of high character players, team captains. And I think Salah is just going to expand on that role, and he's going to be, I think, much like a Pete Carroll coach
yeah.
in
Well, he coached under Pete Carroll as well.
Seattle. Right. Pete Carroll is he's a player's coach, he's a motivator, but he
High
don't take
energy.
shit from anybody.
Right.
So, solid. I think he's going to do well in New York.
No, I think so too. I mean, it's hard to say expectations are high. I mean, they should be. Like at this point, you look at other teams. You look at like the team like the Browns. Last year, hired Kevin Stefanski. They're in the playoffs. They're now in the divisional round. They're in it. So why isn't it like, uh, especially considering like roster wise, like the Jets heading into this season aren't unlike really the Browns heading into last season, well, this current season. Like, if the Jets hit in free agency, and a lot of people were saying, like, maybe the Jets attack offense free agency, go after a guy like Joe Thuney or Allen Robinson, and then remain defense oriented in the draft, stockpiling like these young talent, I can definitely see that, and it's not out of the realm of possibility, especially with the expanded playoffs of having that 7 seed. Like I could, I should have the expectation that the Jets could be a 7 or 6 seed especially in the AFC, which is a bit weaker than the NFC. Um, but another note on LaFleur as the passing game coordinator. I mean, in 2019, well, when the Niners went to the Super Bowl, they were the NFC champions. Uh, they were eighth overall in pass offense. Last year, they dropped to 22nd, but they were 12th in passing yards per game and 13th in total net yards per pass attempt under LaFleur this past season when they were dealing with busted Garoppolo, CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, and he still maintained like an overall productive offense in a lost year. And the Niners in general, every game you like saw them, they weren't like they weren't like the
They were
Jets or
in
the
it until
Jags.
the end.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
competitive, and that's just a testament to, I guess now we could consider the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree that Salah's
that's
come
it.
from,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's very promising. It's very hopeful now for as we mentioned already, we covered it time and time again. There's finally a glimmer of hope with the Jets. Something that I have not felt in like I'd say you say 2 years, I say 3 years because the Bulls, we all knew Bulls was a lame duck coach his last
Right.
year. So I mean, it's been a while in terms of maybe the Jets can do something, and maybe they actually can. But uh, Sal's the guy. We'll see what the rest of the staff looks like. But let's shift gears. This past Monday was the BCS national title game. Alabama Crimson Tide versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. And my lord, Alabama is on a different level from these other colleges. Nick
And
Saban is unbelievable.
to all the people who said Notre Dame did not deserve to be in that playoff, let the record show Notre Dame kept it into what was it, a 10-point game?
Yeah, it's
Alabama wiped the floor with Ohio State. Now, granted, Justin Fields was hurt. He had that rib injury that he suffered against Clemson.
mhm.
But oh my God, Brian.
There is
Uh,
some passes that they were. You know what? To be honest, they were Bryce Petty passes. They were not good. They were in the ground, over the top, and like, listen, injury aside, I, you just got to be accurate. And to me, I've said it before. I think I think Wilson's the guy now. But here's the other thing with Fields. Fields coming from Ohio State did not. He played really well. I think a lot of gas in the Clemson game because he had 5 touchdowns, I believe, more than 400 yards. But
yes.
a lot of the time he was in most of the highlights you see from Fields. He's not under a whole lot of pressure. He has a lot of time, or it's designed rollouts to the right. You get him out to the left, he doesn't look that well. But Fields coming from Ohio State, the Jaguars, who we all knew from since week 16 were going to end up hiring Urban Meyer, even though the owner was like, we never talked to Urban Meyer. Like, of course, they hire Urban Meyer. He's now the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He once coached at Ohio State, coached Fields' rookie year, I believe. Could it possibly be? Now, we still have pro days, we still have the scouting combine, plenty of time between the draft. Because of the national title game performance of Fields, and because the Jaguars just hired Meyer, would that would that mean that Lawrence has a better chance of falling to the Jets, or is the Jets just still going to end up with either Wilson or Fields as their choice?
I am going to put the notion to bed right now
Hmm.
that Trevor Lawrence, regardless of who the coach was going to be, will be drafted number one overall. And the reason I say this, uh, Urban Meyer never actually coached um, Justin Fields. He
Really?
was
Okay.
gone the year before Fields transferred to Ohio State.
Oh, okay. All right.
So there was never that connection there. Granted, he's the type of quarterback that Fields runs, or that Urban Meyer runs in his offense, but when you have such a generational talent in front of you, the likes where he's already getting his bust made in the Hall of Fame, you cannot pass up on that player. Now, there's a lot of hype around him, but you watch his games in Clemson. Footwork is there. He's got an arm. He can run. He has a high football IQ. The kid can do it all. And if you pass up on a player like that, you deserve to get fired. Point blank. You deserve to
Well,
get fired.
now see, you mentioned, and I didn't. I thought Meyer coached his rookie year, but you don't think the connection of Ohio State any type of relevance in terms of the high, because that was the whole thing. Urban Meyer said the most attractive thing, probably besides the no state tax in Florida, is that Jacksonville has the number one overall pick. He could pick anybody. So
Well,
I think there's
by that,
I think there's a chance, especially if, let's just say, Lawrence stumbles a bit in his pro day and Fields lights it up. I mean, we nobody thought the Browns would have taken Baker Mayfield over Sam Darnold. Nobody thought that at all. And then they did. And then the Giants took a running back, and the Jets were left with Sam Darnold falling in their lap. So I think it can, if I were to put a percentage on it, I don't know what you would say. I'd say there's right now 35% chance that the Jags take Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence
I am
at this
going
moment.
to. I'm going to give you my percentage with a little bit of a science lesson. So,
Okay.
a science lesson. So they say that you can never reach absolute zero. Well,
All
guess
right.
what? There's an absolute zero chance that the Jets get Trevor Lawrence. No, but seriously. So, again, you're comparing.
That clip will be replayed after the post first round
Yeah,
draft Jets flight path when the
right,
Jets end up
right.
with Trevor Lawrence.
And
That'll be the intro.
all my audio will just be absolute zero, absolute zero. Okay. Um, no, but seriously. So again, okay, the Jets getting Sam Darnold because he fell into their lap. Yeah, absolutely. But again, Trevor Lawrence is that generational quarterback talent that you
Yeah.
just do not pass up. And if the Jaguars do somehow happen to pass up on him, they're a poverty franchise and they deserve everything they get.
Well,
Now,
I just want to say, 2012. Didn't Washington draft? Or they traded up with the Rams to draft RG3 ahead of Andrew Luck,
no, 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 no.
or was it behind him?
Washington was number two, so regardless, they were going to get whoever fell to them.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that's the position the Jets are in right now. But again, the Colts were always going with Andrew Luck. That was the plan from when Peyton
All
Manning
right, yeah,
announced his press
suck for luck. Yep,
conference, and they went with Curtis Painter that entire year. And Reggie
yeah,
Wayne is doing everything he can out there.
yep.
And I think they ended up winning like 2 games or something like that. Um, but to go back to your point, where a lot of people, not just you, are saying, "Well, there's that Ohio State connection." Well, he also coached at Florida, so why doesn't he choose Kyle Trask? Like, I'm
Oh,
telling
Fields
you,
is light years ahead. I mean, in
well,
terms of the tiers, like you're not going to put it, say, even a Trey Lance up with the Fields or Wilson or Lawrence. Well, Lawrence is in his own tier. Lawrence is at the top. I
right.
think everyone would agree. And then that second tier would probably be Wilson and Fields, however you have it. But I think Meyer's definitely looking at like some Florida players as well. I think that's a possible connection. But in terms of quarterback, I I think the Jags are a dumb enough organization. They're kind of disorganized. They have an Urban Meyer. I don't even know who their GM. I think it's the same holdover from uh, the last few hires. To me, the Jags, they're a worse organization than the Jets. That's saying a lot. But the Jets seem to be in the right direction. But regardless, it's a possibility.
Again, I just think it's very silly to just make all these comparisons with Urban Meyer because he's got connections with Ohio State. I, I came to accept the fact we lost Trevor Lawrence when we beat the Rams in Week 16. Or sorry, excuse me, Week 15. It's one of those things, and you can say what you want about the Jaguars. I, I don't think that they are that stupid to pass up on Lawrence. But again, we've seen crazier things happen. And
Yes.
Brian, question for you, just so we can reiterate, what are the chances of the Jets getting Trevor Lawrence?
Uh,
Absolute
100%.
zero.
Listen, I'll will it into existence. But it's still far a ways away from that. I think you're on the Wilson boat as well, correct? In terms of comparing Fields and Wilson.
Yeah. So again, when we talked off air a little bit last week, we were going over some tape and some games and some highlights between the two. I still think Wilson is a bit better than Fields. Arm talent. He's got more pocket
Accuracy to
presence,
me.
and he's got a cannon. Fields can extend the plays, he can run, but that rib injury, is that a fluke injury where a helmet just went into his ribs, or is it going to be one of those things where it's where
Gonna
it's going to
linger.
be right, it's going to be nagging. But you could also say the same thing with Wilson. I mean, the kid missed 2 college seasons. He was hurt, and then
Yeah.
this year he lights it up. So it's really a crapshoot, and that's why, going back to the Robert Saleh hiring, it's such an interesting wrench to throw into the mix because okay, you know what you have with Darnold, and now you're bringing over two coaches from the West Coast offense that has publicly stated they would love to see Sam Darnold in their offense.
Hmm.
So
Let's go
it,
with some science again, Paul. Absolute 0%
yeah.
chance Sam Darnold's the starting quarterback for the New York Jets in
well, that
2021.
well, that's funny because I think there's a 35% chance, but but I don't know. It's I think the best thing to do is to move on, but I we'll see what happens. But I think right now, under center next season, you'll see Zach Wilson starting quarterback of the New York Jets.
I think so too. I think, if the expected happens, we all kind of expect, but hopeful to be different would be, Lawrence being drafted number one overall, and then the Jets have at two. They'll have a king's ransom there, but you can't mess around with quarterback. You just got to go ahead and take who you think is the best, and Wilson got to be the guy. And then from there, you worry about 23. Now, 23 is going to be interesting because the Jets, after the divisional round of games, Seattle end up losing to LA.
It's all love, by the way, and love is spelled L-U-V.
Yes, Jamal Adams is a clown. But anyway, Jets at 23. People have mentioned to take a running back. Never take a running back in the first round. And I believe Joe Douglas kind of knows this too. I don't know what the range would be. Maybe a receiver is there, maybe another O line. But dear God, not a running back. You see these first round running backs, they get hurt or they don't live up to expectations like a Sony Michel or a Rashad Penny. It just doesn't work out. You can get guys in later rounds. And you know what? The Jets, the guys they have now, I mean, I wouldn't mind having Ty Johnson back. He's a solid change of pace type of guy. He kind of reminds me of Bilal Powell in a way. You have Lamichael P. Ryan in his second year, could be that number two running back. You can go and sign a guy in free agency. Like, I don't know. I mean, Marlon Mack's available, but another person who was floated out there, another 49er that could maybe possibly come over, Jeff Wilson. Just sign him. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. He burned the Jets when they played the Niners. I wouldn't mind seeing Jeff Wilson on as a starting running back for the Jets. There's definitely guys like that could be filled out in free agency. So at 23 overall, again, as we get closer to the draft, we'll get more into coverage of everything like that. But I don't know, Paul. You want to go over the free agency review? Just we'll talk about the current Jets free agents and what we think will happen with each player.
Yeah, let's get it going. You have the list ready?
Yes. So
Okay.
a lot of guys. I mean, like Jeff Smith, Vincent Smith, receivers. These are guys who are at the bottom of the depth chart. So whether they're brought back or not, I don't expect a whole lot of big changes there. Harvey Lange, Bennett Jackson, Kyron Brown, Frankie Louvu. Now he seems like a free agent the past 5 years. He's been around, but he's still young enough, and he's still a solid player. And I would like to see him back. I think he's shown some strides last year in the lost season too.
Yeah, I like Luvu. He burst onto the scene, I believe. What was it? Adam Gase's rookie year at the Jets, right? Or was it Bowles?
I no, I think maybe
Bowles' final year.
Bulls. Yeah, I think Bulls final year.
Yeah, it was Bowles' final year. Yeah, I remember because he had that stretch where people were looking at him like, "Oh my God, the Jets found a diamond in the rough," and
Yeah,
then he fell off. But he's a nice, solid depth piece on
right.
the outside there. He's a great tackler. He can get cause some disruption when coming off the edge. I'd bring him back.
All right, yeah, I think so too. Like as you mentioned, a nice depth piece. We'll just like I'll just group them together so we don't focus on so many of the same type of players. Just run through.
You got it.
Yes or no? Frank Gore,
No,
100% yes. We're bringing Frank Gore back.
he's the
uh,
future.
the future Frank Gore, 45 years old. Arthur Mollett, he's
Hmm,
depth. I mean, Jets
maybe
could use
depends
it.
on what we do in free agency and the draft. I'm gonna put him to the side for now. He
Just
wasn't
put him
bad, but he wasn't great.
the maybe category. All right,
Right.
here's an interesting one. Now, Jets spent the fourth round pick on a quarterback last year, expected to have maybe a new quarterback. Joe Flacco. I feel like you're going to need a veteran type of quarterback. So I mean, if he's cheap enough, I was thinking maybe Alex Smith, but I wouldn't mind Joe Flacco being brought back.
Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco still got it in him with the games that Darnold was out. He almost pulled out that victory against New England. It's the guy's still got game.
Yeah,
Again, it all depends, like you said, on the price. If the price is right, absolutely.
yeah,
I
loyal
think,
1 year deal.
I think, if not, there's other viable backup quarterbacks out there like Andy Dalton and maybe a Blake Bortles. Is Blake Bortles still around?
Blake Bortles is actually they activated him. He's on the Rams, and he will be the backup to Jared Goff for tomorrow's game against Green Bay.
Yeah.
I expect the boat to be getting some playing time at some point in the game.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, as of right now, yeah. Again, it all depends on the price.
all right. This is an interesting one. Jordan Jenkins. Now he's been an outside linebacker for the Jets for what seems like forever. The joke is that he's the new Calvin Pace with this organization. He's been through multiple regime changes and he's still around. He's a solid player.
That was the draft when we took what's his face overall, the other linebacker. I'm blanking on names.
Demario Davis,
Not Demario Davis. No, it,
Darren
it
Lee,
was
Darren Lee.
yes, Darren Lee.
Yep.
Chiefs special teams MVP Darren Lee, Super Bowl champ. And
Yes.
so yeah, Jenkins was a third round pick in that year. That's because it was Darren Lee, it was then Hackenberg, and then Jordan Jenkins. Yeah, that was a terrible fucking year. Holy crap!
That's a solid pick
Wow,
out
that
of
was
round three,
awful,
though.
dude.
Jordan Jenkins
Um,
at round three, not bad.
yeah, Jordan Jenkins, I liked him. He didn't live up to the edge rushing hype that we all expected him to be. But you have to look at it again. He's a third round pick. I would bring him back. Yeah, no questions asked.
Yeah, I think he's solid enough. He's contributed a lot to the Jets, and you got to show eventually, some type of loyalty to players who've been around. Something the
Right.
Jets in the
Right.
past 10 years or so have had trouble doing. Even if the guys are in the later stages of career, you don't let them go to the enemy. Talking
Right.
about
Right.
David Harris and Sean Ellis and others. Um,
And Jordan Jenkins, he was it seemed like one of the only ones on defense who in the post game press conferences had any fire. Yeah, I'm pissed off.
who
I hate
cared? Yeah,
losing.
he,
Right, and you
he
want
cared, but
guys and
not in the Jamal Adams like, oh, I'm the only one caring.
right.
I'm the entire team. Like he
We are
realizes,
pissed off. We need to do that. Yeah, and I
yes,
think he'd thrive in Saleh's organization. So yeah, fuck it, bring him back.
think so as well. Guy who definitely stepped up, next chief, Neville Hewitt. With the Jets missing all their inside linebackers, Mosley taking a year off, you had Cashman who ended up getting hurt. The Jets eventually trading away Williamson to Pittsburgh. Neville Hewitt really stepped up. He was always thought of just being a special teams contributor, and that's what he was initially brought over to the Jets. But the past 2 seasons, these terrible seasons, he's stepped up in a role at inside linebacker.
Yeah, again, he's similar to Frankie Louvu, where he came from out of nowhere and he's played consistent ball. Again, that's another guy that I wouldn't want to let go. I would like to see him around because you can use him in different schemes. Maybe again up the middle if there's an opening. So yeah, I bring him back on maybe a 1 year deal, and
Yeah,
if they don't have any future plans for him, 1 year deal, let him showcase what he can do for the rest of the league, and because like you
and
said,
trade him,
you,
flip him.
you need to build loyalty with these players and show them like, hey, you may not have a future here, but we'll give you a shot. If no one else is giving you a shot, and you can go on your way after and get your deal.
Right. Another one, a guy who I'd say, well, I'll let you answer. Brashard Perriman.
Brashard Perryman, when he was healthy, solid. The problem was he was not healthy. I think he played what, like a total of
Maybe 4 games.
7 games this year. 4 games? Oh man, I was giving him 7.
It didn't feel like he was very sporadic in his play time.
This is a deep wide receiver free agency class and draft. So I take that back. It's not as deep as it was last year, but it's a relatively deep receiving class. I would let him walk and see if he can get a bona fide, star in free agency
Hmm.
or just draft him. No,
Yeah,
just.
because at this point, I mean, you already have Mims, who's shown a lot of flashes to me. Like, uh, you have Crowder there, who's solid entering the final year of his deal. So I don't feel bringing Perriman back. You spent 8 million on him. You didn't get really much. He's been often injured in his career. He is that deep threat, but you can find other deep threats for cheaper in free agency if you need that, home run type hitter, or like as you mentioned, it is deeper than usual a free agent class and also the draft class. Not as much, not as deep as last year's wide receiver class, but still pretty good outlook. So yeah, I'd let him walk as well.
Real quick, if you want to be shocked, he actually played in 12 games this year.
12, wait, in 12 games, did he finish the games or 12 total games?
Like he played in 12 games. Now there may be some games where he didn't finish. Like
Yeah.
in week 2 he didn't play. He came back in week 6. He played 89% of the snaps. He didn't play in week 8. He didn't play in well, that was a bye week, and then from weeks 11 to
The
17 he
problem
played every game.
is, I don't recall him having a bigger impact than, say, Braxton Berrios, and that's not good.
Right. And his stat line, okay, we're just gonna go through the line. 5 targets, 3 receptions, 17 yards. 2 targets, 2 receptions, 12 yards.
Two
8 targets,
targets.
4 receptions, 62. 27. His lone 100-yard game only came in week 9 against New England when Joe Flacco was playing. Seven
Hmm.
targets, 5 receptions, 100 yards, and then the next time he came close was against again New England. 6 catches, or I'm sorry, 6 targets, 3 catches, 84 yards. A very lackluster season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not feeling that. Um, Another one. I think this guy is a must. He is. We've had him for 1 year deals for the past, I feel, 2 3 years. That's Brian Poole. the slot corner, arguably the best slot corner in the league, who can play just regular cornerback if need be, which the Jets did need from time to time. He is really solid. I am a fan of Brian Poole. I think 1 year I'd rather lock him up, you know, for a bit more, maybe a 2 year deal. But I don't know. What do you think of Brian Poole?
Brian Poole, I agree. He is, like you said, he's a really great slot corner. And again, he is one of those guys that when we needed someone to step up, he stepped up. Excuse me. There were times last year where he was lining up outside, and it was just like, Gase, what are you doing? Like, put him where he
Yeah,
belongs in the slot. And this season, he had two interceptions. He only played 9 games because the rest he had a season-ending injury. But in those 9 games, or I'm sorry, yeah, he only played
no, I
nine
think you're right.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah, he had 1 sack, um, and he had, like I said, 2 interceptions. One against Denver, and the other one was against Miami. So yeah, I'd bring him back again. Not exorbitant amount of money, but as a
no,
slot corner, he's proven his worth.
definitely. And I think because the other guys here, the hit or miss, or depth pieces, free agents that probably be brought back out of the way. But the final two bigger names, and I'll pose it to you like this: being that the Jets drafted Ashton Davis in the fourth round or fifth round, was it? Uh,
Third.
Third, okay. From last year's draft, who was essentially ended up being Jamal Adams' replacement, that center fielder type safety. The Jets also, when they traded Jamal Adams away to Seattle, ended up bringing back Bradley McDougald. He is now a free agent, and so is Marcus May, who had his career year. Came in the same draft as with Adams. Who would you rather see back? Or, I mean, the Jets have enough cap space. They will have more in the near future. Well, I guess once the league year starts up, once they make some cuts to guys like Henry Anderson, Phillip, free up another 10 million or so. Um, do you want both of them back, or would you like one more than the other? I think I would like both of them back to just see.
I think it's an absolute priority to get Marcus May back. Again, what he's done this season after losing Jamal Adams and with such an inexperienced secondary, um, the guy absolutely balled out. He absolutely balled out, and he's deserving of that second contract. So he played in all 16 games this year, which is a career high. He had 2 picks, 2 sacks, and a buttload of open field tackles, which is nice.
Yeah.
Jets haven't had a guy who can do some open field tackling, and I'm gonna say since prime Darrell Revis in the secondary. Um,
Well,
yeah,
I would
that
say
is
more so. I'd say more so. Sticking with positions, I'd say Jim Leonard.
okay. Sticking with the position, then yeah, Jim Leonard. But
Yeah.
secondary as a whole, yeah, Darrell Revis. But yeah, he Marcus May, I would love to see back. Maybe give him a 4-year deal and 10 million. That's about market range for a free safety.
Yeah,
Um,
I think May is definitely he would be comparing to say the Yankees off season, who just their number one priority was locking up DJ LeMahieu, bringing him back. They did just that. I think for the Jets, number one priority taking care of Marcus May. Now he is, I believe, 27, so but it's in real life. It's not Madden. So a 4 year deal, like you mentioned, I think that's perfect. Bring him
he'll
back, be loyal, and he would be another player I feel would thrive under Salah.
at the end of his deal, he'll be 32 years old. Um, and again, like you said, I just think Marcus May. He's great in coverage. He's great in open field. And the interceptions he's had this year, you know, you got to be a ball hawk to somehow hold on to these interceptions. He had one that he caught off his butt, and then he had another one where he's doing
Yeah, that was a
a
spectacular
twist,
kick.
and like
Yeah.
it's insane. Yeah, he's absolutely priority number one on that defense to bring back. No questions asked.
definitely feel the same. Um,
Bradley McDougal, I'm sorry, Bradley McDougal, I would bring back if we can get him cheap enough because there's nothing wrong with secondary depth, and the Jets need a lot of secondary depth.
yes, yes, that is definitely true. Um, I think maybe we could save it for next week. Going over the rest of free agents because there's still plenty of news to go through. Um, we could go over like potential free agent targets in the next episode, but let's just cover around the league because it is relevant. It is the NFL relevant to the Jets as well in some case or another. Dan Quinn hired as a new head coach. Well, maybe in the future. The new defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a very solid DC up in Seattle. He's an example of a guy like Todd Bowles with the Jets, better as a defensive coordinator, or currently Vic Fangio, unless he turns around in Denver, better as a DC than a head coach. Um, I think Dallas is a great hire for them. I don't know how you feel. The Cowboys, they were a complete mess last season, but I think that's a solid hire.
I think no, I agree. Dallas was, since in my time watching football, probably the worst coached defense and the worst executed defense I've ever seen. And it's not to be funny, but 32nd in points allowed, 32nd in passing yards allowed, 32nd in total yard. Like
They look
it was
clueless at times.
bad down there.
Yeah,
Um, and Dan Quinn, again, I think he's a great hire. He's one of those coaches where great coordinator, fantastic coordinator,
yeah,
but not head coach material. And I think Dallas really hit a home run with that hire. And again, it brings in another guy on the Mike McCarthy staff who, hey, I've had some success teaching coaching in this modern day NFL.
hmm
And maybe that's something that Mike McCarthy does where he's like, hey, went down in Atlanta, you called this, blah, blah,
to
blah,
get
blah.
more insight. Yeah,
More insight in today's modern game because Mike McCarthy hasn't a clue. And that was a bad hiring from the start, but um, hopefully Dan Quinn can make some big changes. It's going to take a lot, but I think that's a great hire for Dallas.
yeah, I think so too. I think but we'll see what Dallas does. Jerry Jones is totally insane, so we'll see what they do from there. With the going switching over to the AFC, Gus Bradley hired as the new defensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. Not Ken Wisenhunt, as the Raiders Twitter feed official page posted a picture of Ken Wisenhunt rather than Gus Bradley as their new DC. Gus Bradley, former Jags coach, was the DC for the Chargers, I believe, last year or 2 years ago. He's pretty solid as defensive coordinator. He couldn't be worse than what the Raiders had this past year. Paul Gunther, uh, 3/4 of the way through the season, John Gruden got him out of there. Um, they need to get healthy on the defense. I know they were hurting a bit. They just for the Raiders, I mean, they were compete. They beat the Chiefs. They
Hang the banner.
hang the banner. They beat the Chiefs once. They in prime time beat the Saints. Like took it to the Saints. So I think people had this question: could John Gruden do it? Come back after such a long period and adapt to the modern day NFL? And he's shown that. It's just can his defense not be complete garbage? And I think maybe Gus Bradley is the answer to that, or a part of the
it,
answer.
Gus Bradley, yeah, no, 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 absolutely. I think again, I sound like a broken record, but it's a great hire. Originally came from, um, or I shouldn't say where he came from. He was the original defensive coordinator for Seattle's insanely disgusting defense from 2009 to 2012 when they were the Legion of Boom, when they had um, Richard Sherman and they had who's in Dallas now, Cam Chancellor, and they were just filthy up there. So I think his play calling, his expertise, going into Vegas, does it win a division? No, because Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid are still there, but it definitely bolsters up that defense a little bit, play calling wise, and should make them a little bit more scarier in the future.
I definitely agree. I think that's a covered solid hire. The other thing that the Atlanta Falcons just hired Arthur Smith, former Titans offensive coordinator now, to be their head coach. I'm not too sure about this. The more I thought, the more like I looked into Arthur Smith, it is a lot of Derrick Henry. I think he's solid in what he was able to do with Ryan Tannehill, and you can't not take away the success of AJ Brown or even Corey Davis in his fourth or fifth year having a breakout like he has. Um, but I think as overall as a coach, I don't know if this is the right fit with Atlanta.
I think it's a good hire for Atlanta. It would have been a bad hire for a team like Detroit or a team like the Jets, solely for the reason because New
The
York,
pieces,
our offense is horrendous,
yeah,
and Dallas, Detroit, okay, you have some young pieces up there, but they're not established. You know, you have Matthew Stafford that gets hurt, and there's no consistency there. In Atlanta, Matt Ryan is a established quarterback. Julio Jones, who if they
future
hold
Hall of
on to
Famer.
him, that's right, future Hall of Famer. But if they hold on to him, you know, that would be, good for Atlanta. You know, they have Todd Gurley and they have Calvin Ridley and they have a nice offense in place down there already. And I think that's more of Arthur Smith's forte, where him having to work with, a rookie quarterback or maybe Sam Darnold or Matthew Stafford. It would have been a little bit more
Yeah.
challenging, but I think it's a good hire for Atlanta. Elsewhere, not really.
Yeah, I guess it's just, you have to see what he brings in, like who his DC will be,
Right.
because that's a big. I feel like that's Atlanta's biggest weakness and has been since they went to the Super Bowl. Like their defense has completely fallen off the cliff. So we'll have to see with the Falcons. But just finishing up on other NFL news, the Chargers and the Eagles both desperately want to hire Brian Dabble, the current Bills offensive coordinator. I think with Dabble and as well as Bieniemy, being that they're still in the playoffs, uh, like I
You
don't think
can't
there's
do
going to be
anything
any.
until they're gone.
Yeah, so like I think a lot of these teams, maybe the next domino to fall will be the Lions because they're surprisingly are very interested in Dan Campbell, the Saints' assistant head coach slash tight ends coach. He was the Dolphins' interim head coach at one point. Who he kind of brings that Mike Vrabel type of energy, on the sidelines you could see. Um, I don't know if that's probably the best answer for Detroit. I think Detroit honestly, Robert Saleh would have been the best option for the Lions,
Yeah.
but a little too
Oh,
late for that
dude,
now.
they they are kicking themselves up there, and it's nice to see the Jets finally get a W for once.
Yeah,
Everything's going their way.
yeah, definitely. With Saleh, apparently, the state of Michigan, I have no idea. Like, we're pleading for the Detroit Lions to like hire him, but too late for that now. Saleh's a Jet, and Jets going 14-2. But anywho, um,
What real quick? What I find interesting in Saleh's interview with Detroit, I don't know who leaked it. If it was again with Dallas, jeez, with Detroit, or if it was him himself. You get news reports that come out and say, "Oh, he didn't interview very good." Like I
really, I
don't know
didn't
if
even
that
see
was
that.
yeah. Reports leaked that he didn't interview well in Detroit, and I don't know if that was Detroit's way of just being like throwing out some bait and hoping that the other teams take it. Like we're probably gonna back off, or because
Wait, after they had, yeah, yeah, that's tough.
after they
Because
had
every
the
time that
interview,
happens, that is absolutely from the team. That's I don't know why they would do that to save face. I guess that doesn't make any sense to me.
well, yeah. So after the interview, it was stated that he didn't interview well. And a lot of people are looking at it like, who leaked that? Like, if the Lions leaked
Yeah,
that, first off, that looks terrible on their end, but it's also terrible because now they told people, or they told prospective coaches, well, we're going to give out information if you
but
interview
yeah,
well, or what your plans
if
are,
you compare to
and
like the Jets. Look at the Jets front office. There is no leaks whatsoever.
There's nothing.
We had some guy in the bush outside of Florham Park spying from a distance. The Robert Saleh watch. Like that's the only news we get. The Jets beat reporters are out. Manish Mehta's the creep that he is no longer even affiliated
Thank
with this
God.
organization.
Thank
Like
God.
these guys have no inside sources, which is great. You have no leaks finally with the Jets. If it happens to the Lions, screw them. It's the Lions. Don't care. But like,
Yeah.
it's good to see. It's refreshing because with Gase, kind of with Bulls, other because usually it comes from the management. It's these beat reporters get into the ear of the GMs. It's like, oh, if you tell me, give me a little information, something here, I'll write a good story about you. So under McCagnon, under Idzik, under Tannenbaum, this was constant leaks about disgruntled coaches getting into fights with other coaches and disagreements, and players are unhappy, this, that, and all kinds of drama all the time for like the past 10 to 12 years. Under Joe Douglas, it is locked down. And that is
Hmm.
refreshing to see, and I feel like it's just going to continue under Robert Saleh. Nobody knew anything. I don't know about you, Paul. I did not expect the Jets to hire Salah, before we had another episode recorded. I thought we were talking about, well, they already interviewed Salah again for the second time. We'll see maybe this weekend or after the games. But hey, again, we can't be more ecstatic. Robert Saleh's the head coach of the New York Jets. Very, very pleased with that. But
Yes.
I
Sorry to
think,
cut you off. I just wanted to bring that
yeah,
up with
no,
Detroit.
no, no, definitely. I guess just the final thing we could wrap up with in terms of other NFL news around the NFL, trademark, um, is where the hell will Eric Bieniemy end up? Now he has to get a coaching job. This man, it's. I understand because the Chiefs are still in it. They're probably still going to be in it after this week. Uh, like does he go to Houston, or is just Houston going to be that stubborn or dumb enough to hire Brian Schottenheimer, who finally, well, apparently was retained, but then not so much, and now he's parted ways with the Seahawks, and Seattle's apparently looking at Anthony Lynn, former Chargers head coach, as OC, which wouldn't be a bad fit. But what are the Texans going to do? Where's Bieniemy going?
I hope to God that the Texans hire Brian Schottenheimer. I would love
Watson
nothing
would
more
automatically get me
to
out of here.
see the dagger put into that franchise once and for all. There were tweets this week with Andre Johnson. I'm sure you saw him.
Oh
How
yes.
he stated that Houston just wastes players' careers. And looking
The
back on it,
possible first Hall of Famer to come from their organization, Houston
and he's
Texans.
shitting all over him from his own career, Andre Johnson, to Brian Cushing's, to Mario Williams,
To
to
DeAndre Hopkins.
yeah, it's just and now DeAndre Hopkins and Demarcus. Oh my goodness, Deshaun Watson. They are the epitome of a poverty franchise, and if they hire Brian Schottenheimer, they deserve all the ridicule and all the bad misfortunes that they get with it. Because this man has been around the league for what seems like 87 years.
And has
87 years.
ruined offenses everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Terrible from Chad Pennington's. Well, unless you get the green light, you're not throwing it downfield. To Mark, I think he was there for a few years for Mark Sanchez. Like
Yes, yes.
fucking terrible, dude.
The same running handoff at the goal line in the championship game to being
And
with the Colts for a minute, not doing shit there, to stifling future Hall of Famer Russell Wilson and having DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, arguably the best receiving duo in the league, and still so adamant about running the ball for 2 yard gains. Just unbelievable.
yes, um, but back to Bieniemy. I I think that he may make a heel turn, a little wrestling
Oh,
innuendo there. He might go to LA because, again,
LA.
they have a great quarterback
Mm.
in Justin Herbert, great rookie year. Keenan Allen is his number one receiver. He's got Austin Eckler as his back. excuse me, Hunter Henry as his tight end. Defensive wise, they can use some work, but there's an offense that is, I don't want to say established, but the pieces are there, and they just need to be coached, and they need to be
Yeah,
brought up. And I think that's the best job for Bieniemy. And I think if I'm the Chargers, I am just giving this man a blank check and telling him to write a number down and go cash it.
I
I
th- I think the
I think
Chargers are in
Bieniemy's
the best spot now to hire either
exactly
one, either Bieniemy or Brian Daboll, two highly sought after OCs
right,
who have arguably probably the two best offenses in the league with their young superstar quarterback, their offense in general you just went through. I think they're at a perfect spot so to get either one of those. Now the
right.
last
And I
one, I'll
sorry.
continue. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and I think the Chargers with Bieniemy, it just makes sense because you'll have some insight on, okay, well, Mahomes, he's not really good at doing this, or yeah, we
Yeah,
were
that's
able
true.
to we got to scheme around
In the
Tyreek Hill by
division,
doing this, right? So that it makes too much sense for him to go to L.A.
I could definitely see that. That would be the Chargers would automatically vault up in AFC positioning, especially with the assumption that the Steelers are going to kind of fall off a bit now, and the Ravens, we'll see. So I mean, it's the Chiefs at one. They're the new top dog, but from there, Chargers could easily move up to two in less than a year if they, with
Right.
that hiring. But the other thing I want to mention the Philadelphia Eagles. Now they got rid of Doug Peterson, and they're kind of behind the eight ball. They only interviewed, I believe, Robert Saleh and Joe Brady, the former Panthers OC.
Yep.
They're how great it'd be if they hired Schottenheimer. How about Schottenheimer's head coach, Adam Gase as OC for the
And
Eagles?
this extends just outside of football. I hate Philadelphia as a city, sports wise. I hate Philadelphia as a whole. And it's not that the Jets have a rivalry with the Eagles. I hate the Eagles. I hate the Flyers. I hate the Phillies. And I hate the 76ers. And a lot of bullshit happens in Philadelphia, and New York reigns supreme. But, but, um, that, in all seriousness, you mentioned they interviewed Joe Brady. They interviewed Robert Saleh, which New York put a stop to that. They gave him the 5-year deal, as we've been talking about all episode.
Mhm.
But there have been reports that Todd Bowles can get
Ooh.
another shot in the league as a head coach, and there were reports that Peterson was gone from Philadelphia because he was tired of being told what to do. So I can absolutely see Todd Bowles coming out from left field to take that job. I understand that he is interviewing with the Lions today,
Well,
or
apparently they
has.
mutually canceled the Lions and Todd Bowles. Because I just saw on the news there on NFL Network that they mutually canceled the head
Oh,
coaching
really?
vacancy interview. Yeah, for the Lions.
Okay.
Maybe I'm feeling. I think Bowles stays put. Um, how's Jason Garrett to Philadelphia?
You know what? He kept Dallas out of the playoffs this year, like he
And
did the last 8 years he was there.
just keep it in the division. Let's
Yeah,
hire
keep it
Jason.
in the division.
That was
No, I mean, see, Philadelphia's in
they're in a tough
it's a
spot.
very weird spot. You have Carson Wentz, the $100 million crybaby, who, if he doesn't get what he's way, he's out. Jalen Hurts, again, he showed flashes, but he was only a rookie. You have upper management who is very hands on.
Who's siding
Uh,
with the broken quarterback in Wentz?
right, right, and it just seems like you wouldn't be able to install your vision there. Like, a lot of other teams looking for coaches are allowing their head coach to do.
Yeah,
So I think Philadelphia is the least desirable job, and you're absolutely going to see like,
probably got maybe even Brandon Staley, who I
yeah,
predicted would have been like a coaching candidate for next year, is getting a lot of looks this year. Who may just take the opportunity because the money's for a head coach compared to a coordinator is a lot better, and the opportunity. But I just don't know with the Eagles and their
I
outlook.
I just got this gut feeling that Todd Bowles is going to swoop in and just land in Philadelphia because again,
Can happen.
he's a great coordinator, and
Well, at
I
least
think
if
Philadelphia gives him another shot. I mean, that defense was kind of raggedy this year,
yeah.
and
Well, I mean, for
you know,
in the case of Bowles, it's not like other guys who like Gase would be the perfect example. Gets fired from one job for not being good. All right, we'll take you right away. Like there's no time for reflection or for
right,
adjustments to like what did I do wrong? I mean, the biggest case in point would be Bill Belichick. Coached the Browns in the mid '90s and then went back to being a D coordinator for 3, 4 seasons until he became the Pats head coach and saw how that worked. Now, not saying that could be the case with Bowles, but it's been more than 2 seasons now for Bowles being a defensive back to being a DC under Bruce Arians in Tampa. So who knows? Maybe it would maybe be the match made in heaven, but that it could be a possibility for Bowles as a head coach in Philly. But
yeah.
that we're through with the other NFL news. Let's get to divisional round picks now. What were we last week, Paul? I think
I
I was
was
like, I think how many games were there? I think I was
I
four
was
for
I
six.
was I was 4-2. So yeah, we both had our two L's.
Yeah, I think separately because you took the Ram. You nailed the Rams over Seattle. God damn, the Seahawks stink.
Yeah, man, and we can talk about it in future episodes. But Seattle is on a downward spiral, and they just
uh,
need help badly. They need
yeah,
help badly.
we'll talk about that in future episodes
Yeah,
because I would disagree with that. Uh, but yeah, but let's just go over division round picks now. This week there's only 4 games. Usually is. First game tomorrow is the Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers. Wait, is that the first game or
yes, it is.
it is? Okay, yeah.
4:35.
All right. So, I, you know, I like the Rams. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people expect. I think people just think Packers are going to blow them out, but I think Aaron Donald is going to create some headaches. The Rams
Yes,
defense in general, I like, but in the end, I think Green Bay will just overpower them and probably win by like 4 to 6 points. So I'd say give me the Packers 36-32.
interesting. I'm going to take the Rams, and the reason why I
Ooh,
take the Rams is because that defense with Aaron Donald is just the amount of pressure he gets on a quarterback is just unbelievable. Their secondary is solid. Their linebacking core is solid. They have a great defensive line. Um,
can Jared Goff stay
and
healthy?
right, the again the biggest question is going to be, can Jared Goff with his broken thumb throw the ball? Because he last week he looked terrible. He was horrendous, but it was that thumb. I think if he's able to be the game manager that he was, excuse me, last week, the Rams take this W. And my final score will be 28-24. I agree with you in the point range.
All right. Second game on tomorrow's slate, 8:15. Baltimore Ravens at number 2 seed Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be a solid game. I saw before. Um, I'll double check now that there is possibly snow in the forecast, but let me just check that, or maybe
I
some
know
type of
here
weather.
in Pennsylvania we are getting some freezing rain overnight. That'll actually melt. It's a little too warm here, but yeah, there's a polar vortex that's coming down, and it's supposed to collide with this storm. So there is potentially going to be snow tomorrow.
That could, I think that would hurt the Ravens' chances more than anything. I don't know, like Lamar in the snow. We all know like Lamar's passing abilities isn't the best, and that would just hinder it worse. And if you just put spies on the box, in the box, excuse me, to monitor Lamar, it's just gonna. I think it would be a lower scoring game. But if there's no inclement weather, I just think the Bills are just too nice right now. They're on a roll. Give me the Bills. We'll go 45-28. think they take care of
I
business.
I will also take the Bills. I think it'll be a lot closer. I think it'll be a 3-point game. Um, I'll give you 21-17.
Oh, okay. All right. S-
21-18, excuse me. That's not 3 points. That was
that's
4 points.
back to
As you
math
can see
class for
why I don't do accounting anymore.
yes. Um, the Sunday games, we have the Browns at the Kansas City Chiefs at 3:05. You know, it's been a nice run, Cleveland, but the Chiefs are just gonna stomp them out. I think in the end it's gonna be too much. You know, it's gonna be an entertaining first half, but come second half, the Chiefs are just gonna pull. They're gonna make Andy Reid's just gonna make the adjustments. You're gonna have Andy
Yeah.
Reid versus, I mean, uh, in reality, first playoff game coaching Kevin Stefanski because he missed last week because he had COVID and he was in his basement watching on a TV apparently. Um, so I think the Chiefs win. We'll go uh, we'll go 35-24 Kansas City over Cleveland.
I uh I really want to pick Cleveland. I really do, especially after what Clay, I can't talk tonight. Unbelievable. Clay Never mind. Browns over Chiefs by 2 touchdowns.
All right. Uh,
Forget it. I just completely that's it.
well, we have one more game, and
I know, I
now we'll
know.
wrap it up. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints, the battle of the geriatrics. At 6:40 Sunday. So this is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be the closest game. Uh, I'm going to go ahead and say 23-20. Will Lutz field goal wins it for the New Orleans Saints.
Wow. That is, and I'm assuming it's a walk-off field goal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I
Well,
think it'll be one of those games. I'm sorry, Paul. I think it'll be one of those
no,
games
you're fine.
where, like, say, New Orleans has the lead late. Tampa, Brady marches down the field, ties it up, but still leaves like maybe a minute and change left on the clock, and then Breeze answers back with a late field drive of his own.
Yep. I think the Saints are just they just own the Bucks all season. I don't think the playoffs it would matter much. Although playoff Brady, he's a different animal. But I just think it's too much to overcome. Saints win by touchdown, and that'll be 35-28. It's gonna be a high scoring affair.
These matchups, I think, like in recent time, like I'm really looking forward to. I think they're all going to be entertaining games. Can't wait for it, and guess we'll see come next week how right we are. But yeah, in next week's episode, we'll go over just in general free agents, like all over certain targets. We didn't get to them this week, but we will next week. Who the Jets might look at. Also, we'll have Robert Saleh's introductory press conference. We'll maybe get more information on the staff he's assembling or rumored to assemble at that point, and talk more about the Jets then.
Absolutely. You can follow us on Twitter at Jets Flight Path, and that is it for me, Paul, along with Brian. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Absolutely.
Jets, 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 Jets.
We're out.